Hello and welcome to episode 1221 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, September 25th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, how's it going?
Good. Just watching the Yankees, Diamondbacks trying to figure out who wants to lose this game more.
I know, and we got a crazy Monday afternoon game in a rain-soaked New York. It's a rain makeup. There's only 4 games today. Several teams only have 5 games this week. I don't love the 5-game weeks. You are in the craziest main event battle. 3-way tie for first as recently as yesterday. It's going to come down to the last second. I know you're watching every play. That's exactly where I'd be too.
Yeah.
I'm watching everything. I don't know how the people that step away and just check back later do it. Maybe that's what works best for them. We're all different. Respect to that. But for me, no shot. I'm looking at every single thing down the stretch. Where are your nerves at right now?
Shot. Absolutely shot. Like it's just like I tuned into the RotoWire live stream of their Sunday night pod last night just for a minute, and Scott and Jeff were talking about some leagues, will come down to like one run or one. And I talked about and I said in the chat, I was like, I'm 3-way tie right now for first that I'm a part of. At least 5 teams, maybe even 6 teams still in the running. I was in 7th earlier last week. I, finished the week in first. So my nerves are shot. I'm going to be watching every minute, every single minute. Scott's like, no, don't watch. Just set your lineup and then tune out. I was like, no, I mean, I don't have that self-control. I just don't.
I don't even know if it's self-control. Again, everyone's different. So if that's how Scott goes, that's totally chill. I play for this, though. This is exactly what I play for, is the sweat of watching it all. And yeah, it can end up being heartbreaking, but it can also end up being super thrilling. So I'm really pulling for you. We're pulling for our boy Greg as well. He's chasing down that overall. Brian Slack still in command, and a friend of ours as well at the top. He's got to be feeling pretty good. I know, knowing Brian, he'll never be like, oh yeah, this is in the bag. There's no shot he would feel that way. Plus, it's also just not true. He has 70-60, and then there's a 69-44 behind him, which sounds like a lot, but when the main event, points can move. You're talking 30, 40, 50 points a day from teams still. So he's got nothing secured, though we do wish him the best there at the top. And then my buddy Greg is in 6th. It can probably get up as high as 2nd. He could win it. It's not out of the picture, but he's probably trying to get in that top 3 there for the overall in the main, and it's going to be awesome. So I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to be with Brian Slack and some others on Sunday watching everything, hopefully bringing home some titles for yourself. But we're going to spin it forward because we've kind of done everything we can do as far as helping people for the rest of this season. I'm still doing the SP chart, but I'm not even putting commentary on it. I said, if you got a question or something you want to talk about, just put it in the comments, because I'm doing it strictly for the people who are still competing. So I don't want to come up with a bunch of comments that people don't care about. I want to have pointed commentary. So I will still be doing it. And I know some people use it as a DFS chart too, so I didn't want to abandon it, but I'm not putting a note about anything. If you want to say, well, what about this guy in Colorado? Kenta Maeda was a question today. Apparently he's going to go out of the bullpen, so I don't know if you want to start him there or use him in Colorado if he's only going to be in the bullpen. But again, we got to spin it forward and start looking at next year. And we did some of that bit with the team groups here, and we actually have one for the Yankees that we're going to save that you put together. It's a really interesting one with some players that they've got next year. They could be good next year. As quote unquote bad as they were this year against expectations, there are a few breakouts from being really good. But we're going to look at top 100 busts today from the hitter side. And this will include some injury guys, right? But we're not just going to say, oh, he was injured, wash it away, move forward. Because some of these guys have multiple injuries now. And we're getting to the question where we have to say, are we going to go back to that well? Where is the discount that you will take these guys with? So let's dive in, and let's start at the top with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Trout. It's never about talent with him, and we're still not at that point as he just finished up his age 31 season. I mean, it's a little bit of a down year for him, but if your down year is a 131 OPS plus and 18 homers in 82 games, which gives us the easy double up there for a general pace, sign me up. Sign me up if that's my down year. But it's another injury washout. He's now played over 100 games, over 82 games, once in the last 4 years, last 3 years, let's not count 2020, but 36, 119, 82, 134 back in 2019, but he was so unbelievable that it looks like a full season. In fact, he won the MVP that year. Where you at on Trout? If he's first off, do you think he gets out of the second round? And if so, are you in? Because the steals are gone, even as everyone else is stealing. We already knew his were coming down, and now that gap is much bigger this year. So I've been rambling a bunch. Where you at on Mike Trout going into next year?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, I think it all comes down to how many games you can project for him. And I just don't know that you can project more than like maybe 100. And that makes it really difficult to take him, not just in the first 2 rounds, but the first 5 rounds, to be quite honest.
I agree there. If that's where you're at, if you really can't get yourself beyond 100, 120 even, that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, so last year I was willing to, or earlier this year, I guess. It's not the next, it's not 2024 yet, so I can still say this year. Earlier this year, I was buying back in on Ozzy Albies as a 4th round pick. And so if I'm thinking about it that way, like I should be in on Trout as a 4th round pick, even without the stolen bases, especially because the fact that he doesn't steal isn't as painful now that steals aren't as hard to come by, right? Like you don't necessarily need
that's a good point. You're saying
ton of steals. Yeah.
You go elsewhere to get them. Well, you do need more steals to compete, but they're more plentiful to get, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for instance, like so I was doing projections last night for 2024 because I'm a sicko and
crazy.
And I did about 30 plus second baseman last night. Okay. And there were guys who I don't think are going to be high draft picks that I have projected for like 25 plus steals. So like I don't necessarily need to get a ton of stolen bases early. You know, you don't want to, come out of your first, 5 to 10 rounds empty. But like Zach Geloff, like I think I projected him for like 28, 29 stolen bases for next season. And that'd so it's like, nice. Okay, yeah, like if I pair Mike Trout with him, like I think that, okay, now I've got a guy who's going to hit me potentially 30 home runs if he can stay healthy. Score a bunch of runs, get a bunch of RBIs, and then I got Geloff, who I think isn't going to be a 0 in terms of home runs, but steal a bunch of bases because he's going to play every day in Oakland. So
34 steals. I think it's Geloff. I'm not entirely sure if it's Geloff. I've heard Geloff, but if it's Geloff, y'all let me know. In 581 plate appearances across triple and double A, 14 of those in 273 plate appearances at the major league level, the other 20 in 308 at triple A, along with some surprising power, 25 bombs between those 2 levels. And you can write off the PCL, sure, but he got the 13 with Oakland. And we know that park isn't influencing anything. So if you can go, or if it's influencing it downward, if you can go, what did you do for the homer projection? Were you in the teens?
I think I was. I think it was in the low teens. I think it was like 14 or 15, something like that. He's been pretty lucky to get some of the home runs that he's got.
He ripped 8 quick. Like it was very surprising. It was great. That was when the peak of my season when everything was clicking. I had Geloff, and I did not expect the power. I got him for the speed. He was delivering that. I agree. Like it might seem weird to only go say between 13 and 16 homers on a projection when he hit 13 in 63 games, but I think that is more in line. I might get to upper teens, but I'm certainly not going to get anywhere near an extrapolation point of doing 27, 20. I'm not going mid 20s for Geloff.
I just brought it up. So I have 16 home runs, 29 stolen bases, a 243, 301, 385 triple slash.
That's a good season. There's upside there too at 24. If he is more real of what we saw this year, which again would be pretty rich. It's a small sample of 273 plate appearances where Geloff played really, really well. If he's near that good and you come in and it comes in above your projection, that's a hell of a season. That's going to be monstrous. But he doesn't hit lefties at all. He does it all against righties. So I think you're reasonable to put that. And I don't even want to say wet blanket because I don't think there's reason to get too overly excited. Just project him for something like you had there for Geloff, and that's a pretty good number for him. So Trout, in the meatball draft, he went in the 6th round. It was the first pick of the 6th round to our friend Ryan Bloomfield, and he paired him with Judge and Mullins. Where do you stand on that? We were talking second, third. Clearly, that's not the case based on this draft here. I don't know where he went in the Tout Wars one. Weren't you in that?
I was in that. I could probably look it up.
Maybe you can pull that up. But anyway, what do you think about that 6th round draft spot? Let's say he's fit 5-6 for Trout in a 15-teamer. How interested are you there?
Yeah, I would be really interested there. I think that is a perfect spot to take a little bit of gamble, especially if you have safer picks. I don't know if I love Bloomfield's pick with it because he's already got Judge, who's another injury concern bat, and but he's got Mullins, so like Mullins will carry both of them on his shoulders while hitting home runs and stealing bases.
He's going 40-70 this next year. Mullins is.
Yeah,
he's going to make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we might like Trout at the price that he's at. It could be one of those where it starts slow and works its way back up, though, especially with some good reports, some strong spring. So it could be a guy where Trout is one of those guys where the fall and winter buyers get that discount, and then come spring, they're like, I've already got my shares. You guys are now pushing him back into the 4th because he's healthy, and I will just take my 5th, 6th round shares to the bank. I think that's where I would be on Trout, but we'll continue to monitor his price as the offseason develops. What about a youngster, Jazz Chisholm? 34th pick overall, nowhere near that this year. Absolutely health, but what reason would we have to expect him to be healthy? He's starting to pile up some persistent health concerns. Where do you stand on Jazz Chisholm for next year?
Yeah, I got into, I don't want to call it an argument because it was very, very well natured
Debate. Debate when it's not hateful or anything.
Yeah. I was talking with Mike Curlin on Twitter because he put out a poll like, who would you rather have next year? Would you rather have Jazz Chisholm and CJ Abrams? And when I voted on the poll, I was surprised that the poll was exactly 50-50 with hundreds of votes. And I was like, man, I'm really kind of surprised at the results. And he was like, yeah, I really thought Jazz would run away with this. And I was all like, oh, okay, so this is why we have the 50-50 split, because there's no world.
Who was it between again? I'm sorry.
Jazz Chisholm and CJ Abrams.
Oh, well, you're taking Abrams all day, right?
Yeah, you have to. I don't understand.
I don't think you have to. No.
To.
I think it's no, you don't. That is so recency bias. It's unbelievable. Now, I don't know how much you said you were only in the RotoWire chat briefly last night. We brought up Abrams, and Scott, Chat, and I'm part of Chat. So Scott and Chat, of which I was part of, we were kind of putting Jeff on. Jeff was thinking that he wasn't going to be that expensive. I think CJ Abrams is going to be a 3rd round guy with 2nd round creep.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, if he's that high, then I probably will end up passing on him.
So did
I
Scott.
got him in the 5th round. Yeah, I got him in the 5th round of the Tout mock.
He went in the 5th round of the meatball one, too. I think that's where he starts. You buy now. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to get written up a bunch about his breakout. Remember, and they brought this up on the show, Scott did, that he was cut in Scott's main. Zach Waxman picked him up. And I don't blame the cutter because I dug into the stats then. I was putting him in the chat. He was under like a 650 OPS deep into June, Justin. 619, or 619 meaning June 19th. He was at a 636, CJ Abrams was, for his OPS. Since then, you're looking at, from June 20th on, 782 with 12 homers and 36 steals, which is a 24-71 pace. Now, obviously, we're not saying that that's what he would do, but that's 82 games of a 24-71 pace for CJ Abrams. He'll be 24 next year. 23, age 23 season next year. I really think he gets pushed up a ton. I don't think you get that 5th round price very often.
Yeah, you might be right. He was dropped in my auction. He may be
I believe it.
He may be my most impactful pickup in that auction because I got him on 618.
Right before that time period that I just gave.
Yeah, and from then on, and I'm pretty sure I've started him pretty much every week. He's hit 269, 12 home runs, 37 stolen bases. Since
unreal, man.
Yeah. What he's doing is kind of backing up what he's always done in the minor leagues, which is just make a crap ton of contact. I mean,
You've been a fan
90%.
on Abrams.
Oh yeah, I love
This is your guy. This is your guy here. And let's not pretend like, oh, he's finally doing it. This is his second year.
Yeah.
But Abrams was one of those classic guys who flops year one, so he gets forgotten.
He's 22.
So,
yeah,
exactly. He's 22 years old. You know, they committed to him, and he even flopped early this year, as we just highlighted. He was getting cut, and now has this huge breakout second half. It's going to lead to a lot of helium. What's your cutoff, do you think? If it's late third, and you know that that's your last chance to take him, do you take Abrams?
I might. I think it would be in the discussion for me.
Now with Jazz, sorry, finish your thought there, and then I'll get back to Jazz, because that's who we started this combo with, and we kind of veered off of him quickly.
I just with Abrams, like I think it'll depend a lot on where the ADP is falling. Like, is there any realistic chance? Because I'm okay missing out on a guy that I go, hey, I would take him here, but I think I can get him next. Like, I know that always sucks to feel like, oh, he's not going to be a guy like I have to have on my roster.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I will love me some CJ Abrams.
So Jazz didn't go in the 7-round meatball.
Should.
He's outfield only.
Yeah.
So the Jazz Abrams comp is more due to their skills as opposed to positionality now, because he no longer qualifies there. But we're still talking about 92 games with an 1822 homer stolen base with a 248 average. Like, why can't Jazz just do what Abrams did, but for a full season if he can spike some health?
I mean, it's all about spiking health. And
of course.
What I will say too is, while they put up like similar fantasy output in terms of like the raw counting numbers, the skills are not the same. CJ Abrams' skills are a lot better than Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm has an atrocious 74% zone contact this year.
Yikes.
And a 15% swing strike rate. Like, they
neither
are not
walk,
the same.
Neither walk, but Abrams' strikeout rate is substantially better. 12 points better from 31 to 19. That's night and day, really. And that's going to put so many more balls in play. It's going to give him a higher batting average potential, even though they have the same batting average this year. If you're trying to project forward, plus I believe that CJ Abrams can run better than a 280 BABIP. That seems pretty low. That might be one of the lowest numbers he ever runs in a full season again, I think, for CJ Abrams. So, yeah, I'm in on the train. I do think he's going to be going up. I'm not averse to taking him. He's not going to be somebody I have to get, but if he's going in this 5th, 6th range, which is where he went in the 2 early drafts that we know of, I'm taking that all day, because I really think it creeps 3rd, 4th with some 2nd round potential in spring, especially if he has a big spring.
Yeah.
Let's go to Daulton Varsho. No more catching. And, that was a big part of his appeal this year, but also the fact that he's a power speed guy, that he should be able to maintain some value, even if he doesn't have the catcher. But having the catcher this year is why he was picked 45th overall. He ends up going 18-15 on the homers and steals, but hits just 221, which is really tough. That's 14 points lower than last year. Obviously, 235 is already pretty low. At catcher, you're still not losing your mind over that. Like, he ended up outside the top 10 of catchers, because catcher got so much beef to it as the season went on. Guys like William Contreras jumping to the top of the heap, Jonah Heim beasting, Wilson Contreras having another good year, Yainer Diaz coming in and making a bunch of noise. So Varsho got pushed out of the top 10 there, which is pretty rough. Now he goes with no catcher eligibility. Where do we look at him next year after dropping from 27 to 18 homers in virtually the same amount of playing time?
So we're going to talk about another Blue Jay, and it's funny because you already come up with the topic, and I started filling one out that included like young Yankee sitters. The next one I was going to do was Toronto Blue Jay busts, because we've got
several.
Bichette. I think you'd call Vlad a bust, considering
Absolutely.
where you drafted him. So I mean, you wonder, like, just something weird going on in Toronto this year, like
park changes, like, weirdly affected that. Well, for Vlad, I don't know if it was the park changes, but he did have a weirdly awful season at home.
Yeah, so
it's really bad.
I don't know exactly what's going on with either. I literally picked up Varsho for $1, I believe it was. Might have been $2 or $3 in my RotoWire online championship this week for Wilson Contreras. Now, obviously, a lot of people aren't competing in that league, so maybe they just didn't put in bids. But I mean, yes, it's an extremely disappointing season for him. The hard part is, I mean, I think he's got to bounce back, but the losing of the catcher eligibility just kind of crushes his value in terms of where he was going this year, right? Because now you're talking about a guy who is probably I would say I'm probably gonna project him around 22 home runs, maybe a few more, and 15 stolen bases next year with a 240 batting average, 230 batting average. And
wait, say those numbers again. I'm sorry.
22, 23 home runs, 15 stolen bases.
That's still pretty useful. And what average did you say?
Probably 240, 230, something like that.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually made a lot of zone contact this year, and I can't believe he's forgotten how to hit. That just seems weird to me. You wonder how much is being in a new environment,
new country too.
Yeah, new position. When you come up the entire time throughout your career as a catcher, and now you're being told you're not a catcher anymore.
He was never a catcher.
He was never a catcher. Remember, I had that source within Diamondbacks organization that said the only person thought he was a catcher was the general manager of the Diamondbacks.
Correct.
I think he's going to bounce back. I think
I like Varsho
probably
too.
A good bargain, especially because I think there'll be a lot of people who just say, "I'm never drafted him again because he burned me."
And because of the catcher eligibility thing, I think that will depress his price more than it should on Varsho. And I think I'm going to be there ready to scoop because I still think I can get 2020. He's 161 on the auction calculator amongst hitters. That's not good at all after going pick 45 overall. So it's a flop, but I think he can hit better than 221, and even getting back to last year's 235 would be a pretty big difference. Those 14 points would be a pretty big deal, especially for the outfield. And if he can hit 20-something homers and get teens steals again, I think that's fine as my fourth outfielder, maybe even your fifth, depending on how aggressively you draft outfield, right? Varsho's not going to be expensive next year, and I think I'm ready to buy the dip on Varsho.
Yeah.
By the way, I was looking wrong color. Speaking of the position eligibility for Chisholm, he did go in the meatball. He went in the 6th round, actually to the very same team that took Abrams. So they went Abrams in the 5th, Jazz in the 6th. How interesting is that?
I kind of like that. I don't mind that kind of pick. I don't mind so much for Chisholm. 6th, 7th round, that does, that bakes in some of the risk. And also you get a ton of upside. You just need to be really safe the rest of the way in terms of your draft. So
I take that gamble though.
Yeah, sure.
I definitely take that gamble. Bo Bichette, you mentioned we're going to talk about another Blue Jay. Here he is. Bo Bichette, 67th pick this year, and did not come anywhere near that. He ended up, he was 8th in ADP, finishing 67th on the season. Sorry. So he was a mid-first rounder there, drops down to 67 amongst hitters. It was a tough year. Where did the speed go? We talked about, he's been so weird with the speed. And we talked about how maybe he doesn't have it coming into 2021. I remember saying I don't want to fall for him the way I did with Jock Peterson and George Springer. They ran in the minors. They haven't in the majors. Then he goes 25 for 26. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm an a-hole. Moving on from that. Then he goes 13 for 21 last year. And this year, 4 for 7 when everybody else is running. Now, he only played 129 games. And obviously, he'll eclipse 130 with a couple games this week. But that's still some missed time. 20 homers, 303 average. So a lot of this is the lack of speed and the time missed. But where are you at on Bo Bichette, and where do we think his price falls to next year? I'll give you the meatball price after you kind of let me know what you think.
What do you think his sprint speed percentile is?
73rd.
41.
Oh, so he did lose the speed. I thought you were going to hit me with he actually kept his speed, but whatever. Remember, there was an article at the end of the year at Fangraphs. I can't remember who wrote it, and I sincerely apologize, but they covered all the elements that went into Bo losing his speed.
Esteban was his name. I'm blanking on.
Yes. But it wasn't a single factor. It was one of all these little incremental things cut into Bo Bichette's speed, and we don't know if it's going to come back. Well, spoiler alert, it did not come back. And so that was a really interesting article.
Esteban Rivera.
That's right. So no, Leo Morgenstern wrote the why Bo Bichette's wheels fell off. What did Esteban write?
Oh, he wrote.
Did they both write about his speed?
Yeah, no, he wrote about his hitting mechanics.
Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, Leo Morgenstern wrote about the wheels falling off on Bichette, and like I said, he mentioned that it was multiple different elements. It did not return this year. Do you project him for double digits again? Like, because
I don't think you can.
It feels like you probably shouldn't, right? That 25 out of 26 is going to kind of be the peak probably with him, right? With Bichette.
I mean, the fact that his sprint speed has slowed down, that he was 4 for 7. It wasn't even like he was 4 for 5. Like he wasn't even efficient. I mean, how much of this was the Blue Jays saying, "Hey, listen, we don't want you to do this anymore. Just stop.
Cut it out.
You've got too many good hitters coming up behind you. We don't need you running into an out." Like, so. Which is really disappointing in a year where guys like Bryson Stott stole 29 or whatever many he's stolen this year.
He went crazy. 61% success rate now since 2022 for Bo Bichette.
Yeah.
With his 17 steals on 28 attempts. Now he went in the second round of the meatball because they're seeing 20 homers in 130 games and a 303 average with the runs and ribbies. I agree. But where do you think you're paying then on Bichette? Where does he need to go?
Third or fourth round, probably.
Okay.
I think you're going to start having discussions about would you rather have the speed from Abrams or the power from Bichette? And I think it comes down to roster construction, but I think that is a really good argument.
Yep, I think so too. And that, like I said, I have Abrams moving up there, and that will become an interesting battle if Bichette comes down with it and they meet in the middle a bit. All right, let's go to another young shortstop. This one was pure injury, but we have to talk about him because we still don't know what we're getting here. There's going to be the true believers in every draft, but will it be enough for Oneil Cruz to maintain a high ADP? He went 68 this year and did not finish that high. Oneil Cruz finished like 478, which, not great. Call me crazy. But of course, ripped his ankle early on, and it was 9 games into the season. So it's a total washout from that standpoint. So now here we are. We don't even have an 87-game sample to drool over like we did last year and project upon. We have a completely missed season for the 24-year-old. At age 25, I will tell you, he did go in the meatball draft, but where do you take Oneil Cruz next year?
I mean, 7th, 8th round, which means I'm probably not going to get him.
He went 6th.
Yeah. I even 7th, 8th round feels rich. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's pretty much missed the entire season and was supposed to try to make it back and didn't, because of setbacks. So, and we still haven't even discussed the fact, like, his plate skills are atrocious, right? Like,
well, we did discuss that coming into the year, but it remained so even in our brief sample, and he didn't have time to improve upon that.
And you do wonder, like, I mean, it's obviously way too early in his career to call him injury prone, but like, he's a big dude, and big dudes get hurt a lot more than smaller dudes. Like, it's just kind of, the nature of the game. There's just more mass to carry around. So
yeah, you're more susceptible with all those moving parts, and Oneil Cruz is a stud. He's
especially a shortstop, where he's like, that is a tough position to play, especially when you're 7'5". So can
relate.
Yeah, exactly, right. They wouldn't put you at shortstop. So I love Oneil Cruz. If you've listened to the pod for any length of time, you know how much I love Oneil.
That's why I was surprised that you balking at 7-8. You're moving off a guy that you've been in on.
I'm when I end up doing his projections, which I'm sure I'll have done here in the next couple weeks, I may just like turn around and be like, never mind, screw it, all Oneil Cruz all the time.
I think that's going to happen to you with Abrams too.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think you
sure
are
it
going to be
will.
more eager to pay that third, fourth price once you kind of get excited and be like, actually, my numbers are pretty spicy
Mhm.
on him. So yeah, with Cruz, it really is going to come down to that draft cost because I don't think that sixth round is set there. I don't think that's a terrible spot to take the shot, but I think he could be in a wide range there. I think Oneil Cruz could range as low as like the ninth round, eighth to ninth round, and I think at that point maybe the upside is too rich to pass up. I don't know. It kind of depends on team construction too. You talk about taking that one gamble with Jazz Chisholm. It'd be the same with Cruz. He's kind of your big gamble early on, and then you have to play it a little bit safer insofar as you even can. But
But
then you have to be a little bit more careful, I think.
I mean, wouldn't you rather have Chisholm? Like, I mean,
I
like
would absolutely, yes.
as much as I love Cruz has been my dude, I think I'd rather have Chisholm because I've seen him stay on the field. I've seen him make it work even with bad plate skills.
Yep.
We haven't really seen that with Oneil Cruz. We've seen flashes and glimpses,
Glimpses.
but
Yep.
not what we need to see to be like, okay, I'm sure I can, pencil him in for this.
Yeah, and that's what becomes scary with Oneil Cruz. He is such a blank slate. Even a bad year, but like 145 games of it this year would have kept people a bit more excited than a total missed year. It's just such a bummer, and it really creates this kind of blank slate. We'll see where he starts to go, Oneil Cruz. We'll keep tabs on that in Arizona as well when we go to the fall league. Tim Anderson staying at shortstop. A lot of shortstop busts here. Happens to be 3 in a row. That's why we were going in ADP order, but I brought Bichette, Cruz, and Anderson down together since they were all 3 shortstops. Tim Anderson went 76th overall. 1 homer. He got knocked out as many times as he knocked one out.
Mhm.
I had to. I can't not reference the cold cock. 1 homer, 13 steals, 248 average in 507 plate appearances. Oneil Cruz matched his homer total. He played 9 damn games, 62 WRC plus for the 30-year-old. Obviously, everything went wrong, although he still maintained a pretty high BABIP at 327. That's just something that Tim Anderson does. Is there any world where you're back in next year? And how far does this price sink? Are we talking teens round here for Tim Anderson? He'll be 31.
I mean, I think it all depends on where he's playing. Like, he's got a team option for $12.5 million.
Got to pick that up, even if you want to trade him. You have to.
I would think they would pick it up. I kind of wish he'd go somewhere else. Like, you have to
Start
wonder.
over.
Like, there's a lot of off the field things with him this year, and you have to wonder, like, does he just need a fresh start somewhere?
I totally see it.
And because I don't believe that a guy as talented as him just forgot how to play baseball.
Yeah, I think Tim Anderson could have a rebirth, and it wouldn't even really surprise me that much.
Yeah.
Do you have any landing spots in mind that would really pique your interest? What if your boys got him?
I was just thinking, I don't think I want my boys to get him because
Justin's a Giants fan, for those that don't know,
Yeah.
but most probably know.
Because that park would just be disastrous for his power output.
Can it be any worse than it was this year? But what?
Well, but you would expect it.
No,
to
I
be
know.
that,
I'm trying to be
right?
funny on that one. I'm trying to be fun. I don't expect him to hit one again. But let's say he does go there to San Francisco, Tim Anderson. Can't you then project him for an up, a 310 average, but maybe like 8 to 12 homers? You got to keep the homers down a little bit, but can't you maybe go a little bit crazier on the average with those alleys?
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably could. And I mean, I don't think they would stop him for running. I mean,
No, he's always been efficient too.
Yeah, even with his struggles this year, still stole 13 bases. So, I mean, I would love it as a fan. As a fantasy manager, I don't know if I would love it that much. Bad lineup. And
I think y'all could do more though too. I don't think it would be like Tim Anderson's the move. What if you had like 3-4 guys and all of a sudden you thicken up that lineup a bit?
You want to know what the move is though? Where he should go?
Where's that?
He should go to Atlanta.
Oh my God, his price would get bananas in a second for obvious reasons, and I'm not even sure I blame people. Yeah, that's a great call. If they believe enough that his defense is better than Vaughn Grissom's, who we know has probably not good enough defense to really hold short. Orlando Arcia did admirably this year, but you bring in somebody like Tim Anderson on the cheap. They're always so cost efficient with everything. It would make sense that they would trade for a guy who's on a good contract and they take the gamble. That's a great call. What's the highest you'd pay if he did go there? Would you pay single digit round? Would you pay ninth round?
I don't think I would, but
Would you pay 12th? I'll jump all the way down to 12th.
I think I'd maybe go 12. Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
So somewhere in the 11 to 13 range is probably your sweet spot.
Yeah.
If he goes to somewhere like Atlanta for Tim Anderson.
I think he goes higher than that, though.
Especially if he goes to Atlanta. I think the flavor, the hype machine jumps off the tracks. It goes so bananas. I agree with you. And then if you're starting to talk 8th, 9th round, I can't quite get there because I never even really been that much of a Tim Anderson guy. I'm interested in buying the dip, but if that dip gets absorbed by a great landing spot, then I'm a bit more, maybe we take the speculative gamble early in these drafts that you and I do as sickos early on, and we take our shot in the 13th, 14th round, and then hope that it lands on a good spot, and then go from there. That might be the play.
Good teams need shortstops next year. I mean, I think the Dodgers are going to look to upgrade. The Rays are probably look good.
Dodgers, I was thinking about too. I almost said them, but you trumped it with the Braves one, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Isn't Willie Adames a free agent? So the Brewers could be looking.
Is he? No, I think he's got
still got another year,
a little bit more time. Because after next year, last year.
All right,
so they'll hang on to him.
They'll trade him.
They could. They do like to do that. They do like to move out before guys go, and then they'll trade Adames, sign Tim Anderson, and that wouldn't be a bad landing spot with that park.
It'd be great. Yeah.
Star Marte. What are we doing with Star Marte? Obviously, his age, injuries have started to pile up now. He's going to be 35 next year. He hasn't eclipsed a $120 since 2019, 120, 118, 86 the last 3 years. Did still swipe 24 this year in a very efficient 24 for 28, but only 5 homers and a 248 average in his 341 plate appearances. Is Starling Marte somebody who remains on your radar? He'll still be with the Mets unless they trade him because he's under contract. What do you think of Star Marte?
Yeah, I mean, he's still got 2 more years under contract too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he had played a full year, we'd be probably loving his line even without a ton of power, right? Because like he played half a season, stole 24 bases, hit 10 or 5 home runs. So kind of double that. You go, oh man, he could have been like a 10-45 guy potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably who he is at this point. But I think you also have to bake in a lot of time for injuries because this guy who hasn't been healthy a ton in his career anyways. And
he gets hit by pitches all the time. That's part of his profile.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess I would probably project him for like 115 games or something like that. And a boatload of stolen bases, but not a ton of power, especially if he does stay in that park. Which I assume he will because I don't know how many teams are going to be looking to pick up a guy like Starling Marte on his with 2 years left on his deal. So I'm probably not going to be super interested unless the price is really cheap. If the price is really cheap, I'll take the gamble because talking about a guy who could steal 40 bases, that deserves to be rostered in every form.
Yeah, 270, 12, 30 as like a off the top of my head projection for Starling Marte. He didn't go in the meatball draft again, which is 7 rounds. Rob DiPietro puts that together.
He shouldn't have.
No, I don't think he should have when it's only going 7 rounds. As a double-digit rounder at that projection that I just gave you, where are you getting in for Starling Marte? Is it the 12th? Is it in that same Tim Anderson range? Is it higher?
Yeah, I bet it's 12th, 13th round, something like that. And I think that is fair.
That might be a bargain.
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. And it's also, you're starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, if this guy doesn't pan out, it's okay. Other guys will.
Yeah. The ageism is going to start creeping in. He's going to be 35, Starling Marte, with the
injuries,
piling up injuries. That could keep the price down, even though the stats, like his average the last 3 years is 11.28 with a 288 in the 108 games per season for Starling Marte. So that'll be interesting. He went 83rd this year, by the way, and didn't finish anywhere near that. I didn't feel like I needed to give you all the number because it's hundreds. Tyler O'Neill, 87th. This is a guy, for me, that you should always buy the dip on if you like him. Never pay full price. And, injuries, he's kind of like a younger Starling Marte. He doesn't have as much track record at all, but I'm just saying as like a power speed guy of interest who constantly gets hurt. 9 homers, 5 steals in just 72 games this year. Monstrous situation over in St. Louis. What do you think of Tyler O'Neill? And do you think he'll even be in St. Louis next year? This will be our last guy, by the way.
I hope he's not in St. Louis. I absolutely hope
Same.
he's not in St. Louis. I hope they trade him to a better park, to a better situation where he's not being blocked. He's still a fantastic defender. He actually put up the best plate skills of his career, and it wasn't even close. He had a
Oh, wow.
5% growth from 82%, which is below league average, to 87% in zone contact. I think this could have been a monster year if he had just stayed healthy. And I don't think there's going to be a very big price on the guy. So, like, I think
I
this is
don't
a guy you're
either.
going to get, like, outside the top 15 rounds that could, again, he's put up second, third round numbers before. I think he could do it again, especially if he gets a different location away from what seems to be just a cancerous situation in St. Louis
I
for him. So,
can't believe they're bringing Marmol back. I'm really
yeah,
surprised by that.
I mean,
Yeah, those plate skills you talked about, career high 11% walk rate as well, strikeout rate down to 25%, also a career best. So they helped him to a 97 WRC plus despite the injury washout ugly year. He was still about a league average hitter, and he was 5 for 5 on the bases. So he didn't have volume, but he was still efficient, and he's been an efficient base runner. He gets to a new spot, they let him run a bit. I mean, would we be surprised by 25 and 13 type of deal with like a 240 average? I think that's certainly in the cards for Tyler O'Neill. And like I said, this is a guy I buy the dip on consistently as opposed to pay for him when he's great. So if he does spike back up, then in 25, I'll be off just by virtue of the fact that I don't ever want to pay full price for this profile.
absolutely.
All right. Well, those are our top 100 busts amongst the hitters. I think we'll do pitchers on the same thing on Friday as we land this plane on the regular season. Justin, best of luck to you, man. Like I said, I know we're going to be texting each other, sweating everything out. Keep me posted on how it's going, and I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.